So, the Rugby Championship is just around the corner for the 2022 season. Really looking forward to this one. As someone based in the UK, I'm not necessarily supporting any team going in, so I'm just looking forward to seeing some super high-end rugby. And what a game we've got to talk about first of all. Springboks versus the All Blacks. What an opener. Really looking forward to this one. Who should we talk about first? Let's start off with the Springboks. Now, in the July series, we got to see them play Wales. I did quite a lot of coverage for that tour. And the Springboks, they went through a couple of different motions. They won 2-1 against Wales. Their second game that they lost against Wales, even as a Wales supporter, I was thinking they probably don't deserve to lose this from here. Wales managing to come back at the end. They went through some dribs and drabs. They had a bit of a struggling first half in the first game. The second game sort of slipped away from at the end, and then the third game was the game I was expecting to see more through this tournament, where they really sort of hunkered down and just got on with their game and came away with a decent scoreline. Now, going into this game, New Zealand are a very different animal to Wales. I feel like Wales and South Africa play in quite a similar way. They're both willing to sit back. They're both willing to be the defensive team. They like to use quite a lot of their forwards where they can do. The set piece is a bit of an area that they go for. Neither team really launching these huge play attacks. Now, New Zealand are absolutely about the attacking game, so it's going to be interesting to see how this South Africa defence holds up. So let's have a look at the team that's been announced. Starting off in this front row, we have Trevor Nyakane, Malcolm Marx, and Frans Malherbe. Now, Malcolm Marx starting, which is nice to see. I did say during that July series, he's a really good player, someone that doesn't necessarily know the most about South African rugby. I've been getting into it more. I've been learning more throughout the July series. Malcolm Marx seems like a really good hooker. And I don't really know why he doesn't start. There must be a reason why he always seems to start on the bench. But he will be starting today. I believe it's his 50th cap as well, so nice for him. I think that's a good-looking front row. Obviously, New Zealand are going to want to try and dominate that scrum as well as South Africa. So I think this is a pretty good front row just to be able to hold up in that scrum situation. In the lock department, Eben Etzebeth and Lou Diega. Now, Etzebeth, incredible in his final game. That 100th cap game we got to see, I thought he was an absolute monster. I thought he was really good through the July series, actually. He's grown an awful lot. I'd probably say in the last 12 months, just in terms of the penalty count, really dropped. He's really sort of grown. He's like a fine wine. He's just getting better the more he plays. The one thing I used to say about Etzebeth was the amount of penalties he does give away. And now that he's lost that, he's just this incredible player. So I think that's a really nice move. Lou Diaga, again, another player that's doing well. I believe he can also move to a couple of different positions as well, but seeing him in lock is where I'm more used to seeing him play. So, line-out situation going to be a big area for New Zealand. Wasn't the best necessarily against Ireland. So I think having some good jumpers in your lock will be a good move. In the back row, we've got Sia Khaleesi as the captain. Who else? Who else going to take over that? In the 7 shirt, Pieter Steph du Toit and Jasper Wiese coming in that 8 shirt. Now, big ball carriers all day long for both these lads. Really looking forward to see this. They're obviously planning it on being a forwards game. Let's not beat around the bush. This is a big set of 8, but what we think we're going to be seeing from all of these players, these forwards do not mind carrying with the ball in hand. I think this is probably a good move. Both teams probably going to be backing their forwards an awful lot. The backs will probably come into it more if they've got a bit of a counter-attack break, or if they're really beginning to put pressure on, worth spreading it wide. But I think an awful lot of this game will come down to those forwards. So having big ball carriers, big tacklers, I don't think is a bad move at all. In the halfback partnership, Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard. Now, Faf de Klerk not having the best July series, in all honesty. I know, big sacrilege. People might get a bit angry in the commentary of that, but I really don't think he did. I thought the box kicking was a bit lackluster. I thought some of the passing choices were a bit wrong. Actually, there were a couple of the sort of the second string players coming in were better. I'm quite surprised to see him taken back over here. I guess to get going against an All Blacks team, you probably want experience. Hopefully, Faf de Klerk's worked on some of those box kicks a bit, and hopefully we'll come into this game feel a little bit more confident. But Andre Pollard, I thought, played well through that July series, so hopefully they can get that nailed down and just work as a halfback partnership. We've seen that halfback partnership plenty of times, even in the World Cup, so I think they'll be happy working together. In the centre partnership, who else? Who else are going to be but Damien Dialende and Lakanya Am? These lads just know exactly what they're doing. They know how to work alongside each other. Very different setup, but they just work so well together. 2 different pieces of it, like a jigsaw they put together in South Africa. Nice to see. I think that's the correct call for their centre setup there. And then finally in this back 3, Mapimpi Kurtley Arenze. Hopefully I'm going to pronounce his name correctly. Obviously, I've had a couple of people call me out of pronunciations. Hopefully that's good. And then finally, Damien Valencia in that 15 shirt. Now, no Colby, but I believe Colby's out with a jaw injury. I'm not sure what caused it. I've sort of read a couple of reports saying that he might have broken his jaw. So there won't be a Colby throughout the series, as far as I'm aware. I don't know a lot about Arenze. But we'll get to see a little bit more from him. I do think he played in the July series, but I think he played in that second game. There's so much rugby going on, hard for me to remember. Mapimpi not getting a great lot of the ball, in all honesty, in that July series against Wales. So forwards-based, the ball really not spreading out to him. So it'd be nice to see him have a bit more time on the ball. But Valencia in that fullback position played phenomenally. Both games that I saw him in, especially when he had to move to that sort of fly half at half-time, because Elton Yanti is just nowhere near it. Yeah, absolutely awesome. I think he's a really, really good player, so really glad to see him in the fullback shirt. On to the replacements then. Of course, it's pretty much just the lads you expect. If they're not starting, they'll just be on the bench. So starting off, Mbanambi in that hooker replacement. Stephen Kitchoff and Vincent Koch coming in there as well. So yeah, I mean, it pretty much, South Africa have got this nailed down. It's pretty much these 6 players in the front row, just an interchangeability, really nice to see. Again, top level players here could be starting. So, not a bad team to have come on in the halftime. Oh, no, normally South Africa do that 45-minute switch over for the front row. So it'd be nice to see them at some point. Other replacement forwards, there is the 6-2 split on the bench. Think it's the right way to go. I think this is a good call for this game. So we've got Vincent Koch, Morat, Franco Mostert, and Quagga Smith. Now, Quagga Smith is a bit of a machine. I've been incredibly impressed learning a bit more about him as a player. A couple of the players that we've got starting in this starting 15, although they're going to be absolutely massive in terms of ball carrying, there's a couple of people here that are going to be able to do the jackals, but one of the players absolutely monstrous in terms of jackals is Quagga Smith. And when players begin to get tired in that second half, bringing him on, also a good ball carrier as well. South Africa have a real sort of lottery with the forwards they have over there. That's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, in terms of the jackal rate thing, he's absolutely brilliant. And then in terms of the replacement backs, Jaden Hendrikse and Willie Leroux. Now, I would like to keep Damien Valencia for as long as possible. I do like Willie Leroux, but I think I actually prefer Valencia. I think he's got an ever so slightly better skill set. Again, I think a lot of people will probably disagree with me there. But, hey, we're all open to an opinion. Jaden Hendrikse, looking forward to seeing him get a bit of game time. Again, I think could have been starting. Don't know. Would have been nice to have seen him potentially starting there. But I think South Africa have got a really good team playing at home for this one as well. Going to be a big chance for them to potentially get a win over New Zealand. Speaking of who, we need to move on to talk about the All Blacks, who I think they would be a little bit disappointed with their July series against Ireland. I thought Ireland played really well, to be fair. I don't necessarily think it was New Zealand playing badly. I think Ireland just played extremely well during that summer tour. New Zealand have a couple of little areas they'll just want to work on, they'll just want to improve. But I thought when they got on the attack and they just built their sort of phase play, they used some of the set plays they were doing, they seemed to make ground, they were getting tries, they had a couple of nice counter-attack runs. So South Africa will have to be on the lookout for just don't give this team the room, because they will come back and score tries. So starting off in the front row, George Bower, Taukaeo, and Angus Tarveo. Again, it's a big front row. Again, a couple of switches could have come in here potentially. I haven't really got to see a lot of Dane Cole starting recently. I quite like him as a player, but Taukaeo starting there, I don't think it's a terrible move. Again, heavyweight pack. They again, like I sort of said, South Africa wanting to dominate this the scrum area is going to be a big area. So maybe putting heavier lads on is going to be something to go there. In the lock department, Sam Whitelock at 4 and Scott Barrett at 5, which is a setup I'm not really used to seeing. I normally would, when I think of these players, I would think of Sam Whitelock playing at 5. Scott Barrett, they've moved around a lot, haven't they? He's played 4, he's played 5. They're chucking him in at flanker during the July internationals. I don't think he did terribly, actually, to be fair, in terms of flanker. Not a position I'm used to seeing him in. I don't know why it's 4 or 5. Maybe a New Zealand subscriber can sort of drop down why they're that way around. I would prefer it to be Sam Whitelock at 5 and Scott Barrett at 4. even my knowledge of playing like the Crusaders and stuff, I've always seen Sam Whitelock as a 5. So going to be interesting to see why they did that. Maybe they're trying to mix that up because of the Springboks lineup. Maybe they want Sam Whitelock to be ever so slightly more contestable against people like Etzebeth, who's playing at a high level. Not sure. Maybe would have liked to have seen that swap round. In the back row, Akira Ioane, Sam Cane as the captain, and then Ardie Savea. No, so I see Akira Ioane getting in there. Nice to see him a bit more game time in that flanker shirt. Sam Cane, a bit quiet for me during the July internationals. A couple of nice tackles here and there, but just not what I was expecting. We saw so many 7s really beginning to pop off in that July internationals. Even the opposite we saw with, Van der Fleer absolutely killing it for Ireland. Sam Cane felt a bit quiet for me. Would like to see him get into this series a bit more. Ardie Savea, though, big man on campus. Ball running, we saw him get a couple of tries against Ireland in that test series. Thought he's a really good player. He's got back into his stride now, Ardie Savea, and really like seeing him play at this really top level. To me, it looks like he slimmed down a bit, but not necessarily dropped muscle, but just slimmed down a bit. Seems to have increased his pace a little bit, but certainly hasn't dropped any power. Really nice to see. I think he's playing well at the minute. In the halfback partnership, Aaron Smith, Beauden Barrett. Who else? They're the two you probably want there. Yeah, I think in terms of leadership, these two lads are doing pretty well. And even in terms of the July internationals, Aaron Smith had some beautiful passes from that scrum half. Absolutely bullet-driven passes. He's really good. And Beauden Barrett had a couple of try-scoring, saving tackles going in there. We saw a couple of interceptions as well from him. Yeah, so I think it's a good move. In the centre partnership, David Havili and Rico Ioane. They're mixing the centre partnership up a lot over in New Zealand. I think they may be playing this one team by team rather than necessarily having a set centre partnership. A lot of people have been putting different names of who they'd want to see at centre here. David Havili, someone dropped down because they were annoyed I didn't know. Every player's 15-year back history apparently used to play fullback. Not something I knew a lot about, but I sort of saw that more in the July internationals. Some of the option choices we do, whenever I've seen David Havili in the past, I always just think of him more as a 12 who's just going to run it sort of out the line and try to take it around. But I actually saw options coming from him in that inside sense. We saw little chips over the top, little kicks, some clever little offload passes around the back. Looks like he has a slightly larger skill set than I've given him a bit of credit for in the past. So maybe not a bad choice at 12, but Rico Ioane, the outside centre, can also move to the wing if you need him to. I think you've got good coverage there. I might be leaning towards the Damien Valencia in terms of that centre ability. I think that could be a big area potentially to see players really make some room. And then in the back three, finally, Caleb Clark coming in there on the left wing. Big surprise there. Nice to see him in there. Will Jordan on the right wing. And then finally, Geordie Barrett in that fullback. Will Jordan still just absolutely top tier. Absolutely loving Will Jordan at the minute. I think he's been brilliant since he came onto the pitch. Since I first sort of saw him 18 months, 2 years ago, I just think he's been awesome. I just don't think he has like bad games. I think he's an absolutely brilliant player. Geordie Barrett, you know what he brings. He's just going to hold down that back area. But Caleb Clark coming in here. A couple of people might have wanted to see a Sever Reese or a George Bridge, potentially. I haven't kept up too much with some of these teams' announcements. It's been a bit tight for time, so apologies for not knowing a great deal about it. But I don't think Caleb Clark's a bad move at all. I saw him play at the Blues a couple of years back. He'll get over for the try. He's a big lad. He's a young lad, but he's a big guy. And against a team like South Africa, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have backs who also double up as forwards. We see it in Scotland with Duhan van der Merwe. I feel like Caleb Clark's in that same sort of bracket. He's absolutely not afraid to just get himself involved with the pick and goes. He's a big lad. I think this is probably a really nice choice to have on this wing. So overall, I think it's a pretty decent New Zealand team. In terms of the replacements then, Dane Coles, Ethan de Groot and Tiro Lomax. Again, a tough here just because of my own knowledge of a lot of the New Zealand team. I think I might be leaning a little bit more towards the South African front row replacements here. I still think there's some good players in there. Lomax, we see give away a couple of penalties every now and again. I feel like maybe I'd be backing that South African forward set a little bit more. Replacement forwards as well. Tupou Vaa'i and Shannon Frizzell gets it. I'm looking forward to see some Shannon Frizzell. I think he's a really good player. Again, another player we don't get to see. I really like Shannon Frizzell and Dalton Papali'i in terms of the flankers where I've seen them play at club level. And I just don't feel we get to see enough time. Looking forward to seeing him. I'll be keeping a bit of a special eye out for him. I think he's a really nice player. But New Zealand going for the 5-3 split. Big call. So I think this, again, another reason to have someone like Caleb Clark in there just to act as the forward. If the game's not opening up, you're not getting your wingers involved. Whereas you've got someone like Mapimpi, who's just going to be standing out on the wing waiting for the ball. Caleb Clark will get straight in the middle of that action, act as another forward, so that might be allow them to have a bit more versatility. And then finally, replacement backs, Finlay Christie, Richie Mwanga, and Quinn Tupaia. Hard man to stop Quinn Tupaia. For anyone who's seen some of the live streams we've been doing, Quinn Tupaia, absolutely willing to get on the ball and take it over the line a bit. I think this is a good New Zealand team, don't get me wrong. For whatever reason, I don't know why here, I'm not blown away by this New Zealand team. I don't know what it is. There's not a bad New Zealand team. This is a good New Zealand team. I've just not been sort of like, whoa, I'm really feeling it. Maybe it's still residual from the July series. But I feel like in terms of a score prediction going into this game, I might be back in South Africa here. I did think going into the series, maybe it was going to be a bit of a home advantage game. I thought the teams basically played, alternating games at home and away. Apparently that's not how it works. It is actually 3 home games, 3 away games. So both of the South Africa New Zealand games are apparently being played at home. Quite an interesting setup there. I'm not very used to this tournament. This is going to be my first year officially watching this tournament, so looking forward to it. But in terms of a score prediction, I think I'm going to back South Africa here. If they can just keep the penalty count down, just not let New Zealand get into the game, keep the ball in hand, using the box kicks but correctly, I can see them just taking these little 3 points here and just ticking that little scoreboard over, maybe getting a try here or there. So I'm going to say South Africa to win. Maybe not by a lot. I don't think by any means these games are going to be blow-away games, but I'm going to say South Africa to win by 3. That's going to be my prediction for this game. But of course, guys, what do I know about rugby? I only have a YouTube channel, as everyone puts that down in the comments. I know nothing about rugby, so make sure you guys do drop down in the comments your thoughts on the game, your thoughts on the teams, and finally, your score predictions. And if you haven't already, make sure you are signed up to the Super Brew Leagues that we've got on the go. It's free. It's super easy to join. There's a whole video about how to actually go and join it. It's super easy. We have both the Predictor Series, if you don't have a lot of time over the weekend, you just want to pick who you think's going to win. And we also have a fantasy series that now the teams have been announced. I can finally start to sit down, work out what I'm going to do for those teams. Really looking forward to doing that. And then we'll be doing the results for that on Monday. So make sure you are subscribed. We're nearing that 2,000 subscriber marker. If you're not subscribed, you've made it this far into the video, you're enjoying the content, obviously, make sure you are subscribed just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.